Hi, I'm Miss Alcorn. I am currently wrapping up my student teaching in a first grade classroom. Within my classroom, I currently have 19 students, 6 of which are girls, 13 are boys, and this is just a presentation to show my development and my work on trying to master all 10 InTASC standards. InTASC Standard 1 is all about learners' development. It is our responsibility as educators to challenge our students while still making sure they receive a developmentally appropriate education. Each student will be in different stages of development in each category, and to be successful, we must meet these different stages with challenges, but also make the content relevant and developmentally appropriate. So the artifact that I'm using for this InTASC standard is Fry's first 100 words list. I was tasked with testing the students at the beginning of the year over all these words, just to get a general knowledge of where they stood. And then as the year progressed, I've started to test some of the students again over them just to see if they have improved. InTASC Standard 2 deals with learning differences. Teachers need to understand that every student will come from different cultures and different backgrounds, and that these have a direct impact on how students learn. And to make sure our students are getting the most out of our lessons, we should familiarize ourselves with the community that surrounds our school. The artifact that I'm using for this standard is the demographics paper that we had to do at the beginning of the school year. We were to research the demographics on IDOE Compass website and just get familiar with what the school life was like and what the students' backgrounds were, and it was really important in coming in and learning about my students. InTASC Standard 3 is the learning environments. We should make sure that our classrooms always are positive, and it allows students to feel comfortable with who they are and feel encouraged. My environment, I always wanted having bunch of students' works all over the wall, and I was able to do that within my student teaching classroom. But the artifact that I'm using is my welcome board. Almost every day I would always draw or write something that would either get students intrinsically motivated or just to have give them a smile on their face and get them ready to learn for the day. InTASC Standard 4 is content knowledge. To be effective, educators need to teach beyond what is provided within the curriculum material. Content should be relevant to your students and provide well-rounded education. So for my artifact, I decided to use my LAMP project. My LAMP was an 11-day interdisciplinary unit over the solar system. I connected science, social studies, mathematics, and language arts all into one unit. My students did a variety of things throughout this unit. We made our own straw rockets. We became planets. We were able to create the moon phases out of cookies. We figured out what continents are and where they are and where we live. We discovered shadows and how shadows are formed. Overall, I feel like the students just really had a great time doing these learning experiences, and it was meaningful, and it allowed students to get that hands-on that they sometimes need. InTASC Standard 5 is the application of content. I personally believe Standard 5 and 4 build upon each other, because in Standard 5 it's making sure educators are able to apply content knowledge and resources effectively. It's important to make sure that we are connecting the content presented in the lesson, but also connecting it to real-world examples beyond the classroom. For my artifact, I decided to use my Shadows lesson plan. For this lesson, we decided we were going to discover what shadows were. First, we made a diagram to show how the Earth rotates and how, as it rotates, the sun goes across the sky. Once we found that step, we decided to go outside and trace ourselves with chalk. And after we traced ourselves, we decided to go back about 2 hours later and see how our shadows have changed throughout the day. So students were visibly able to see the changes that were made throughout just a couple hours within the day of how the sun went across the sky and just changed a small part of our world.
Zayden, what happened to your shadow?
I can't fit in it.
It doesn't fit in the other one, does it? What happened? Did you shrink?
I don't know.
It what?
It got bigger.
It
Turned.
It turned, didn't it? It's shifting a little bit.
InTASC Standard 6 is all about assessments, and I wanted to make sure that when I was assessing my students in my classroom that I used multiple forms. It's important that you do this because not every single student you have learns the same, so it means that they won't always test the same. And students need to be able to show what they know in more ways than one. And so for my artifact, I am using just pictures and videos and my lamp tests that I tested them over, because in all these I would do informal and formal assessments, because just simple conversations with the students and just slipping in a question and asking them was a great informal way, when the more formal was the lamp pre and post test and the lamp final project where they were to create their self in space, and just making sure to not just use one form of assessment and just allowing them to show you what they really know in the ways that they know. For example, one of my students is a fantastic drawer. She drew a lot of the answers whenever I'd ask her, but she couldn't tell me in words, but I could tell in her drawings that she understood what I was teaching her. So InTASC Standard 7 is planning for instruction. I really wanted to make sure that when I was planning instruction that it was authentic and it supported every single learner within my classroom. So to do this, my lessons were really detailed, and I would make sure within my lessons that I would mark certain areas where I would differentiate for certain students. And the artifacts that I used were the curriculum books that were provided for me to go through and get ideas from. And then of course, I have my handy dandy weekly lesson planner. That thing was my lifeline. I put everything down in there so that if I ever forgot something, I knew when I was wanting to do it and how I would do it. InTASC Standard 8 is instructional strategies, which this means educators need to use different instructional strategies when delivering information to their students, because this allows learning to become more accessible to all learners and all their ways of learning. So for my artifact, I focused on my Oreo cookie moon phases lesson. So within this lesson, we first did a diagram of the moon phases by actually creating it with using ourselves. Then the next day I was like, what about using cookies? Because who doesn't love a sweet treat? And this was just a great way to use our fingers and our hands and to see what exactly the moon phases look like. And of course I modeled and demonstrated, because who wouldn't? And then it allowed them to enjoy a sweet treat. And I know this really worked because I had students later on in the week that would come up to me and be like, Miss Alcorn, did you see the waning gypsus that we had outside last night? And it really showed me that these students appreciated and really took to the activity that I presented to them. InTASC Standard 9 is professional learning and ethical practice. Educators must become lifelong learners, and to ensure that we're not only improving our own education and practices, but to ensure that we're providing our students with the best education. And educators should continuously be evaluating ourselves, seeking constructive criticism, and working to improve areas of weakness. My artifact for this one was the QPR training that we did at the beginning of the year. This was just a training that is very useful in our line of field. I also did a book club over fostering resilient learners. We did this with a couple of experienced teachers in my school, and it was great to hear their opinions and just learn from them. And then I also visited the nest at Ball State University, and this just showed me all the technology that my students can be exposed to, and it allowed me to see what I can potentially use in my classroom one day. Now finally, InTASC Standard 10, which is leadership and collaboration. This requires educators to step out their comfort zone of their classroom and make an impact on the rest of the school and community. They do this by collaborating with colleagues students, families, and community members that will not only benefit our own students but have an overall optimism for the community. So my artifact is pictures of people who I've collaborated with. My mentor teacher, you're awesome, Miss Hampton. Woo! I have my neighboring teacher. I have my wonderful fellow student teachers. Girls, we've done it. All these people I've collaborated with throughout this entire semester, and they've made it move so much smoothly. And I've benefited so much from the knowledge that they bring to the table, and they really showed me what it means to be an actual educator. I can say that leaving student teaching, I am prepared. I feel like I am ready to take on anything thrown at me. I am so much more confident than when I was walking in here in May. You can even ask my mentor teacher. She remembers the scared girl coming in, and now I'm leaving confident that I can do this, that I can run my own classroom, that I have people behind me supporting me and ready to catch me and push me back up when I fall. And I know there will be falls because that's just part of teaching. But importantly, I'd like to give thanks to my supervisor and my mentor teacher. You all rocked. Like, I wouldn't have had such a great experience if it wasn't for the support from both of you and the support from EWA. You all made us feel so comfortable and was there for us if we ever needed help. Like, that's all I could have asked for in my student teaching experience. So thank you.